The signal that should never have been answered. The bridge of the TRS Valiant hummed with quiet efficiency. Screens flickered with star charts, engine readouts, and communication channels. Commander Jace Ryland stood near the central console, arms crossed, watching the void beyond the reinforced glass. Space never changed. It was always the same endless black, dotted with distant whites that took centuries to reach. Ryland had spent 15 years staring into that darkness. He knew its silence. He knew its cold indifference. But tonight, something was different. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission," Lieutenant Chen called out from the communications station. Her voice was steady, but there was a tightness in it that made Ryland turn. "Origin?" he asked. "Colony 7-9, Outer Rim. It's strange, sir." Ryland walked over, standing behind her as she replayed the audio. Static filled the bridge, broken by fragmented words that barely formed sentences. Not alone. They came from nowhere. Cities empty. No bodies. They don't kill. They take. Help us, please, before they... Then silence. Chen looked up at him. "That's all we have. The signal cut off 3 hours ago. No follow-up, no secondary beacon." Ryland stared at the waveform on the screen. Something about it felt wrong. Not just the words, though those were disturbing enough, but the pattern itself. It was too clean, too deliberate, like someone had crafted it specifically to draw attention. "What's the colony's status?" he asked. Chen tapped her console. "Population, 12,000. Mining operation, self-sufficient. Last official check-in was 2 weeks ago. Standard report, no issues." And now? Nothing. No communications, no transponder signals, no emergency beacons. Just silence. Ryland felt a familiar weight settle in his chest. He had been in situations like this before. Colonies that went dark, pirate raids, equipment failures, sometimes disease. Usually there was a simple explanation. But this felt different. "Sir, orders?" Chen asked. Ryland looked at the star map. Colony 7-9 was 3 days away at full burn. It was isolated, far from any major trade routes or military stations. If something had gone wrong, they were the closest vessel capable of responding. He knew the risks. Rescue missions in deep space rarely went smoothly. But he also knew the rules. No distress call went unanswered. Not while humans still held the line. "Set course for Colony 7-9, Ryland said quietly. "Full speed. Wake the rest of the crew. I want everyone ready." Chen hesitated. "Sir, with respect, that message, it doesn't sound like a normal distress call." "I know. It sounds like a warning." Ryland met his eyes. "I know." She nodded slowly and began entering commands. Within minutes, the Valiant shifted course, its engines burning bright as it accelerated toward the unknown. 3 days later, they arrived. The Valiant dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. Immediately, alarms began chirping across the bridge. Sensor data flooded the screens. Ryland's crew moved with practiced precision, scanning, analyzing, cross-referencing. "Report!" Ryland ordered. Lieutenant Voss, the tactical officer, spoke first. "Sir, the colony is intact. Building standing, power grids active, no signs of damage." "Life signs?" "None. 0 biological readings on the surface. No heat signatures, no movement." Ryland frowned. "What about the ships, orbital stations?" "All present. Docked or in stable orbit. No signs of evacuation." That didn't make sense. 12,000 people didn't just vanish. Even in an emergency, there would be signs, wreckage, bodies, something. Scan for residual energy signatures, weapons fire, anything that suggested a fight. Voss worked his console for a long moment. Then he shook his head. Nothing, sir. It's like they just stopped existing. Ryland felt the hairs on the back of his neck rise. He had been in combat. He had seen massacres. He had pulled bodies from ruined ships. But this was something else. This was absence. Pure, unexplainable absence. Sir, Chen spoke up, her voice tight. I'm picking up something on long-range sensors, far side of the system. What is it? Unknown. Multiple contacts. Large. They're not moving, just sitting there, in the shadow of the gas giant. Ryland walked over to the tactical display. The contacts appeared as faint red blips, clustered together like a swarm. They weren't giving off any signals. No transponders, no radiation signatures that match any known propulsion system. My instincts screamed at me. Every part of my training told me to turn around, to jump back into FTL and report this to command, to let someone else handle it. But I thought of the 12,000 people who sent that message. I thought of the families waiting for answers. I thought of the rule that had guided humanity for centuries. No distress call goes unanswered. Take us in, Ryland said quietly. Slow approach, weapons hot, all hands to battle stations. The Valiant moved forward, deeper into the silent system, and in the darkness beyond the gas giant, something began to stir. The harvest begins. The Valiant drifted through the system like a ghost passing through a graveyard. Every sensor was active, every weapon charged. The crew moved in tense silence, their eyes fixed on screens that showed nothing but empty space and abandoned structures. Commander Ryland stood at the center of the bridge, watching the main display. The colony below looked peaceful. Lights still glowed in the windows of hab blocks. Street lamps illuminated empty roads. Gardens and parks showed on thermal imaging, their vegetation still alive and growing. But there were no people. Launching probe, Voss announced. A small reconnaissance drone shot from the Valiant's hull, descending toward the colony surface. Its cameras transmitted clear images back to the ship. The crew watched in silence. Streets perfectly maintained, vehicles parked in neat rows, a children's playground with swings still swaying slightly in the artificial atmosphere, homes with doors left open, tables set for meals that were never eaten. It's like they vanished mid-step, Chen whispered. Ryland said nothing. He had seen strange things in his career, but this violated everything he understood about disasters. People didn't disappear cleanly. There was always chaos, always evidence of panic or struggle. This looked like the entire population had simply ceased to exist in the same instant. Sir, the contacts beyond the gas giant, Voss said. They're moving. Ryland's attention snapped to the tactical display. The 9 red blips had separated from their cluster. They were accelerating, not toward the Valiant, but spreading out in a wide formation that would encircle the system. Distance? 4 million kilometers in closing. Estimated arrival at our position in 40 minutes. Identification? Still nothing. They're not responding to any hails. No transponder signals, no radiation signatures that match any known propulsion system. What are they using for propulsion? Ryland asked. Voss shook his head slowly. Sir, according to our sensors, they're not producing thrust at all. They're just moving. That was impossible. Physics didn't work that way. Every action required a reaction. Every movement required force. These ships were accelerating without any detectable means of doing so. "Ready all weapons," Ryland ordered. "Prepare the FTL drive for emergency jump and want everyone ready to leave this system in 30 seconds if I give the order." "Aye, sir." The bridge crew worked quickly. Ryland could feel the tension radiating from every station. These were good people, trained, experienced, professional, but fear was beginning to seep into their movements. "Sir," Chen spoke up quietly, "I'm receiving another transmission." "From the colony?" "No, sir, from them." The bridge fell silent. Everyone turned to look at Chen's station. "Play it," Ryland said. Static filled the speakers. But unlike the first message, this wasn't fragmented or desperate. This was clear, deliberate. And when the voice came through,
"Sir, they're blocking our escape vectors," Voss said, his voice tight. "If we try to jump to FTL now, we'll pass within firing range of at least 3 of them." Ryland stared at the display. They were trapped, deliberately, carefully trapped. The distress call hadn't been a cry for help, it had been bait. "You came because you are human," the chorus of voices continued. "You respond to distress. You refuse to abandon your own. This predictability makes you easy to study, easy to harvest. Your commander will now demonstrate another human trait, the choice between sacrifice and survival." Suddenly, the sensors lit up. Energy readings spiked across every screen. "Sir, they're charging weapons!" Voss shouted. "Evasive maneuvers! Return fire!" The Valiant lurched as its engines fired at maximum burn. Weapons turrets rotated, tracking the nearest Dyric's vessel. Railgun rounds shot across the void, moving at a significant fraction of light speed. They struck the alien ship dead center and did nothing. The rounds hit an invisible barrier 30 meters from the hull and simply stopped. They hung in space for a moment, then dissolved into particles of light that were absorbed into the ship's surface. "What the hell?" Voss began. Then the Dyricks fired back. It wasn't a weapon in any conventional sense. There was no projectile, no beam, no explosion. Instead, a wave of something, energy, matter, something in between, rippled across space like a distortion in reality itself. It hit the Valiant shields and passed straight through them. Alarms screamed, systems failed, and across the ship, crew members began to scream. Ryland felt it too. A pressure inside his skull, like fingers made of ice pushing into his mind, searching, probing, trying to peel back his thoughts and examine what lay beneath. He gritted his teeth and forced himself to focus. Around him, his crew was collapsing. Chen clutched her head. Voss had fallen from his chair. Others were on their knees, crying out in pain. But Ryland had been through mental conditioning, psychological warfare training. He knew how to build walls inside his mind. He grabbed the comm and forced words through clenched teeth. "All hands, this is the commander. Fight it. Don't let them in." The pressure increased. His vision blurred. Blood dripped from his nose. And then, just as suddenly as it began, it stopped. The Dyric's vessels went silent. The psychic assault ceased. Ryland's crew slowly climbed back to their feet, shaking, gasping for air. The chorus of voices returned. "Interesting. You resist. Most species collapse immediately. Your mental architecture is more complex than anticipated. This requires adjustment." On the sensors, something new appeared. The 9 Dyric's vessels were opening sections of their hulls. From inside, thousands of smaller objects were emerging. Pods, drones, something organic and mechanical at the same time. They spread out like a swarm of insects, moving toward the Valiant. Ryland knew, with cold certainty, that they were about to face something humanity had never encountered before. something that didn't just want to kill them, but to take them apart and study every piece. We do not surrender. The swarm moved through space like a living thing. Thousands of organic mechanical pods, each the size of a human fist, spiraling toward the Valiant in coordinated patterns that defied physics. They didn't follow trajectories. They simply moved where they wanted to be, as if space itself bent to their will. "Point defense systems, fire at will," Ryland shouted. The Valiant's automated turrets came alive. Streams of high-velocity rounds tore through the void, creating a wall of metal between the ship and the approaching swarm. Hundreds of pods disintegrated in flashes of green light. But there were thousands more. "They're not slowing down," Voss yelled. "Estimate contact in 40 seconds. Ryland's mind raced. His ship was designed for combat against other vessels, pirates, rogue military units, the occasional hostile encounter. But this? This was something else entirely. The enemy didn't follow conventional tactics, didn't use conventional weapons. "Chen, get me a channel to the rest of the fleet. Emergency broadcast. Tell them—" "Sir, we're alone," Chen interrupted, her voice strained. "The other 2 ships in our group are 6 hours behind us. We're the advanced scout." Of course they were. The Dyrricks had known exactly which ship would respond first. They had calculated it, planned it. The distress call had been designed to lure a single vessel, isolated, vulnerable, perfect for study. 20 seconds to contact. Ryland made a decision. Emergency vent. All atmospheric compartments on the outer hull. Blow them now. Voss stared at him. "Sir, that'll—" "Do it." The tactical officer's hands moved across his console. Throughout the Valiant, emergency hatches opened. Atmosphere explosively decompressed from dozens of compartments along the ship's exterior, creating an expanding cloud of gas and debris. The swarm hit the cloud at full speed. Most of the pods passed through harmlessly, but some, dozens of them, were caught in the sudden blast of gas and sent tumbling off course. Their perfect coordination broke. They spiraled away, struggling to reorient. It bought them 10 seconds. "Sir, the remaining pods are adapting," Voss reported. "They're spreading out, trying to attach to the hull in multiple locations." Ryland watched the tactical display. Red dots swarmed across the representation of his ship, clustering around airlocks, service hatches, anywhere they could gain entry. "Seal all external access points. Weld them shut if you have to. Security teams to the outer corridors, pressure suits and heavy weapons. If anything gets inside, I want it dead before it reaches the crew sections." Throughout the ship, alarms blared. Men and women ran through corridors, carrying rifles and cutting torches, preparing to defend their home against an enemy they didn't understand. The first pod breached near engineering. It burned through the outer hull like the metal was paper. Molten steel dripped away as something wet and glistening forced its way inside. The security team waiting in the corridor opened fire immediately. Armor-piercing rounds tore through the pod, ripping it apart. Black fluid sprayed across the walls, hissing where it touched metal. The thing collapsed, twitching. For a moment, the team thought they had won. Then, the fluid began to move. It flowed along the floor like living oil, separating into dozens of smaller threads. Each thread moved independently, seeking, searching. One touched a security officer's boot. He screamed. The others watched in horror as the black substance crawled up his leg, spreading across his suit. He clawed at it, trying to rip it away, but it moved faster. It reached his helmet seal and forced its way inside. His screams cut off abruptly. His body went rigid. And then, slowly, his head turned to look at his teammates. When he spoke, it wasn't his voice. It was the chorus. "Subject acquired. Neural mapping in progress. Memories accessible.
This human fears for his daughter. She is 7 years old. Her name is—" The team leader shot him. The body fell, but the black fluid kept moving, spreading across the floor toward the others. They fired into it, backed away, screaming into their radios for support. On the bridge, Rylan heard the reports flooding in. Engineering breached, cargo bay breached, medical bay breached. In every location, the same horror. The pods weren't trying to kill the crew. They were trying to take them. "Sir, we can't hold them," Voss shouted. "They're inside the ship. They're everywhere." Ryland's jaw clenched. He looked at the tactical display. The 9 Dyrix vessels still hung in space around them, watching, waiting. This was all just an experiment to them. Humanity was just another specimen to be collected and studied. They made a mistake. They thought humans were like every other species they had encountered, that when faced with an unstoppable enemy, humans would collapse, would surrender, would accept their fate. They didn't understand. Ryland slammed his fist on the comm panel. "All hands, this is the commander. Listen to me. I know you're scared. I know you're facing something we've never seen before. But here's what I need you to remember." He paused, letting his words echo through every speaker on the ship. "We are human. We don't surrender. We don't lie down and die. Every one of you signed up knowing you might face the impossible. Well, here it is, and I'm telling you—"
Unexpected. You adapt. You resist. You destroy what you do not understand. This is inefficient. This is costly. We require additional study. Alternative methods will be employed. The 9 Dyrix vessels began to glow. Energy readings spiked to levels that made the sensors screen warnings. "Sir, they're charging something," Voss said, his voice hollow. "Something big. If that hits us—" "I know," Ryland said quietly. He looked around his bridge, at Chen, blood still crusted on her lip from the psychic assault, at Voss, hand shaking but still at his station, at the rest of his crew, exhausted, terrified, but still standing. They had fought the impossible and survived. For a few minutes at least, humanity had shown these ancient harvesters what it meant to face a species that refused to die. But now the real weapon was coming, and Ryland knew they wouldn't survive it, unless he did something desperate. "Voss," he said calmly, "what's our reactor output at?" The tactical officer checked his screens. 70%. "Why?" "Can you push it to 150? Voss turned to stare at him. "Sir, that would overload the containment. The ship would—" "I know what it would do. Can you do it?" Understanding slowly dawned on Voss's face, then fear, then finally, grim determination. "Yes, sir. I can do it." Ryland nodded. He opened a ship-wide channel one more time. "All hands. Abandon ship. I repeat, abandon ship. Get to the escape pods. You have 3 minutes." Across the Valiant, his crew moved, not in panic, but with purpose. They had trained for this. They knew what was coming. Chen stood from her station. "Sir, you need to come with us." Ryland shook his head. "Someone needs to pilot the ship. Someone needs to make sure we get close enough." "Close enough for what?" He smiled grimly. "To teach them a lesson they'll never forget."